Hey everyone, Christina here with One Creative Direction. Welcome into my channel. Welcome to both my new subscribers and my dedicated subscribers. I've had quite a few new subscribers here lately, so definitely a big welcome to you guys. Early on in my paint pouring journey, I created some tips and tricks kind of videos. And so I have a few more that I want to share. So this video is going to be a few more tips and tricks to kind of help you, just little hacks to help you in your studio, in your pouring journey. And if you haven't already seen all the ones that I put out early on, they are very much older videos, but still really good information in there. And then if you've watched any of my videos, I always put little tips and tricks in my videos. Not every single one, but I like to share when I figure out something, just because my engineering brain is constantly working. So I know I've mentioned in several videos that press and seal is a beautiful thing for paint pouring. So one of the things that always bothered me was, of course, if you're doing blooms or some of the other processes and techniques that use house paint, these cans are a beast. I've seen people do blooms and just kind of dip right out of it, and I'm one of those people that I don't like messy edges on anything. So a while back, what I started doing was is putting press and seal. Now, when I pour my my bloom paint, my pillow paint, I use these cups and I put press and seal. Then I put an air hole on one side and I do a little triangle there to pour out of. It works beautifully. It gives you just amount. You can cut it off. You don't have to, have all this goobery stuff, because if you've ever used house paint on blooms, if you leave the container open, that kind of thing, then you're going to get goobers inside of there. What happens is the paint around the edges or on the sides, it will dry. And then once it gets wet again, because you pour the paint over it, then it gets moist and that hardness gets soft, and then you get these big goobers in there, right? So nobody wants that. I don't want that. So this helps that tremendously. And then to take that same concept when you're pouring from your house paint, as soon as I open a new container of house paint, I immediately put press and seal on here. Now, unless you have a huge tight rubber band, I highly recommend you also take some sort of strong tape and put around the edge too, because obviously this paint coming out of here, when you go to pour it, is going to be very heavy and have a lot of pressure on this press and seal. And this is only so strong on the side here where it sticks, right? So it's not going to hold that. So you need something tight here to prevent that paint from just making this whole thing just fly off and paint go everywhere. So don't make that mistake. I thought about that ahead of time, because on these I always put a rubber band around the edge just in case. And it not only does it prevent that from happening, it also prevents, like any additional air. So in my mind anyway. So what I do on these is pretty much the same thing. Depending on where I'm pouring it into, I use these, and I just recently started using these. This is a maple syrup container from the Costco syrup that I use. They pour out of here beautifully because they come with these lids, right, with a nice little pour spout. So I'm going to pour some in here. I'm almost out in this container. So that helps tremendously. It also helps with, this is my Bloom Color PM. So same concept, press and seal, rubber band around the edge. You have the same issue with this that you have with this, and that the goobers, right? If you're doing a bunch of paints, then it's going to get all hard around the edges and that kind of thing. So do the same thing on these. And the other thing that this helps is it helps, I don't know if you've ever opened a can of paint, poured out of it, you know, got it all nice and clean, put your lid back on, and then it gets a lot of moisture, and then it gets a little rusty, and you get all these like chunks of stuff, and then the possibility of that getting into your paint is really high at that point. So you're going to have to watch that. So another thing that I do on these paint cans, and I only do it on these because they do last so long, right? Is I put additional painter's tape like this. And I do this on the side that I'm going to be pouring from. And that just gives you a little extra added strength. Because like I said, sometimes that press and seal is only so strong. This paint is pretty strong, you know, when you're pouring it out of here. So I do that, and then I cut into that, right? I cut right in here. And then of course you want a little hole on the other side to allow it to pour out. Okay, so that's the first tip I wanted to share with you today. Stay tuned for the next tip. It'll be up in a second. Okay, we are back for the next tip. So I got a little bit ahead of myself in the last section. So let me finish telling you how this works. I didn't finish. I got a little premature in my exit. So basically, I went ahead and filled up my maple syrup container. And you're probably wondering, before I shut the camera off, you're probably wondering, okay, great, that's a good idea, but now you can't put the lid back on. You are correct. So what I do is, as soon as I'm done pouring, and I usually fill a couple of containers at a time, so I usually only have to pour out of here 3 or 4 times at the most. So all I do is I just take another piece of tape and put over that. It's not going to hurt it. Obviously, it's going to just reinforce that part. And then I take another little piece and I put it over the air hole on the other side, right? And I always clean this lid off, and I'll just stick it on top. And I really don't need it to be there because I'm not using it. And then I'm done with it, okay? So finish that out. Hopefully that tip helps you guys. The other thing is with bloom paints. If you do blooms like I do, and I do a lot of coasters, and obviously when you have, when you're doing a lot of coasters, you have a lot of paint that spins off onto your Lazy Susan, right? And I usually take a spatula and I scrape that off. And you may or may not have seen me in videos. Even when I do a swipe, I take my swipe tool and I take it and I clean it off on one of these little plastic containers. Now these are just Dollar Tree. They come with lids, but I used to kind of put some cut pour paints in here, but I've moved to different containers. I really didn't like these. So I have like 6 or so. So basically what I do is I just kind of rotate them in and out, right? So what I do is I scrape my Lazy Susan off and I put that paint in one of these containers, and then I just let it sit and dry. And then when it's dry, I will take it and let me get something here to pick this out. Sometimes I can use my fingernail. Sometimes I need a little bit of a tool. Right now I have my gloves on, so I need a little bit of a tool to get it started. Basically this paint, it just peels right out. And I'm gonna try to get this out of here. Usually it peels out all in one piece. This one doesn't have a whole lot, but you can see that it's dry. And I do wait until it's completely dry. And I may have varying levels of paint in the bottom here. This one doesn't have a whole lot. Just get the bottom started, and it basically just pulls all out. One big piece, just like that. And then you've got a clean container, and I just put it right back over there, and it's ready to go. Now, I have a few here that are in varying states of dryness. So you can see that this one is really dry around the edge and it's super thick, but just anytime I'm in here and I'm thinking about it, I just take it and I just roll it around the edge, just like that. You can see that this one is starting to get really, really thick. So if you do this, and that helps put paint on the sides, number one, it makes it easier to get off the sides, and it helps it dry a little bit faster, because this one's got quite a bit of paint in it. So then I just do that, and I'll set it back down and let it dry. Now this one, I just did not, probably last night, I believe. So it's pretty runny and it's still pretty wet. So I just do the same thing. Every time I think about it, I just run it around the edge, and I'll let those dry. So, oh, I apologize. So that's the second tip for today. So stay tuned for more. Okay, everybody, we're back for the third tip. If you have seen the video that I made a while back when I first started doing jewelry, in that video, I was using painter's tape. And I was trying to find something else that would work better. But I switched from using painter's tape to duct tape for the simple fact that, number one, duct tape is stickier, okay? If you were using the painter's tape and you put a cabochon on it and you went to dip it in, your painter's tape may get to a point, if you're using it for the second or third time, where it's not strong enough to hold that cabochon on and maybe it fell off. I had that happen a couple of times, and that's when I was on the search for, you know, what can I do to make this better? I tried masking tape. I tried another kind of tape. I can't remember, maybe packing tape. I can't remember. And then I'm like, why don't I try duct tape? I will tell you that I put this duct tape on probably 2 or 3 months ago, and I'm still using the same ones. And the great thing about this is you don't have to have this exact thing. You can use the popsicle sticks, the great big ones, wooden ones that everybody stirs with. You just wrap your tape around it to fit it. That's all you got to do. You could even use like a wooden skewer. It really doesn't matter. I like something flat. That way your cabochon has something substantial to stick to, right? And honestly, the wider popsicle sticks would work better. I just find these easier to hang on to. It's just like a little coffee stir stick. They're a lot thinner, but basically the same concept. But yes, the duct tape, I have all different colors, but like I said, I've been using these same ones and they're still super sticky for months. So with the painter's tape, I was constantly having to change them. And what I was getting a brand and it wasn't very sticky. So tip number 3, try duct tape. It works so much better. So stay tuned. I've got one more tip for you. Okay, guys, I'm back for the last tip for this video. I don't know how many of you out there this will help, but for me, in my routine, what I usually do, or what usually ends up happening, is I get in a very creative mood and I'm in my studio for days on end painting. And as everyone knows, when you paint, you have to let everything dry and cure for so many days, etc., etc. So I got into the problem of trying to remember when I painted something. So I was guessing, and I don't like to guess. So I thought to myself, well, I a long time ago, actually when I first started, I immediately started putting all of my recipes on index cards. So if I want a specific recipe, I know exactly where to go. I have a whole stack of recipes and I have them color coded because Dollar Tree has colored index cards, and I'm like, okay. So I've got like Cell Activator bloom stuff in blue, and I've got Dutch pour in one in I think yellow, and I've got Cloud Pearl pours and cup pours in pink, etc. So I've got them all color coded. So I have a ton of these cards, and I thought to myself, why don't I make something similar, helpful for my painted items? Because not only do I have to keep track of when I painted it, then I sometimes use shellac before I start my top coat, which if you've watched me long enough, you know I use Crystalac products. So if I'm going to use bright tone, then sometimes I'll shellac first and then go into bright tone. And then if you've seen my coaster, finished coaster video, and this is not just specific to coasters, because when I put my business stamp on the back of my paintings, my coasters, everything, I always put the date that I finished it. So it's usually the last coat date. So if I finish up a set of coasters and I put that last coat on today, I would put today's date on the back of those. But sometimes when I finish coating them, I don't always get to finish them right away. And then I forget when I last coated them. So you get the picture. I always have a lot of stuff in process. Like a month ago, I had so many finished items. I was every day in here top coating. And I had so many things done and I couldn't remember the dates. So long story short, everyone, I made myself these little cards and I can reuse them over and over because I laminated them. And so basically I wrote on the index cards, date painted, shellac date, and last top coat date. Those are the key dates that I typically need for most of my items, right? So I took this off of something that was over there. I painted it on the 19th. So I know when I'm okay to top coat that, or shellac it. Sometimes if I get a lot of items, I will just take them all outside and I will just shellac everything. It helps. It helps the process. It helps speed it along for the top coat. So these have been very helpful for me. That way, by the time I get to go like finish the coasters or, you know, stamp the painting and put the hardware on it and price it and all that stuff, I know what date to put on it. So super helpful for me. I don't know if that helps anybody else. Sometimes if I have any other notes, I can write on the back. I left them all blank on the back, but you can just wipe that off and use them again. So hopefully that helps somebody. I know the older you get, the more your memory, but I get to the point where I have so many things that these are super helpful. So thanks for joining me, guys. I hope you enjoyed my tips. Hopefully one or all of them may help you or stimulate some, you know, idea in your own, you know, processes. So I will catch you guys on the next one. Bye now.